My name's Ethan, and for the past 3 years, I've been the guy behind the wheel of a sleek black Mercedes S-Class, chauffeuring one of Boston's most ruthless attorneys, Victor Grayson. To the world, he was a legal shark, a man who could make juries tremble and opponents fold with a single glare. To me, he was a ticking bomb of arrogance, a guy who thought his money and power made him untouchable. I was just his driver, a nobody in his eyes, a silent shadow who kept the car spotless and the schedule tight. But I saw everything. I heard everything. And when he crossed me, I made sure he paid for it in ways he never saw coming. Let's rewind. I wasn't always a driver. 10 years ago, I was doing time in MCI Norfolk for a robbery I didn't commit. Framed by a crooked cop and a lazy public defender, I spent 5 years learning to keep my head down, my mouth shut, and my eyes open. Prison teaches you to notice things, patterns, tells, the way people move when they're hiding something. When I got out, I was 32, with a rap sheet and no prospects. I took what I could get, driving jobs, odd gigs, anything to keep me out of trouble. By the time I landed the job with Grayson, I'd learned to blend into the background. People like him don't notice guys like me. That was his first mistake. Grayson was a piece of work, 6'2", always in tailored suits that cost more than my monthly rent, with a voice that could cut glass. He'd built his empire defending shady real estate moguls, hedge fund crooks, and the occasional mobbed-up contractor. His clients loved him because he won. His enemies, and there were plenty, hated him because he played dirty. I'd pick him up at his Back Bay penthouse every morning at 7:01 a.m., sharp, and from the moment he slid into the back seat, he was on the phone, barking orders, sweet-talking clients, or tearing into some poor associate who'd missed a deadline. He never said good morning or thanks. To him, I was furniture, a cog in his machine. "Ethan, airport now," he'd snap, not even looking up from his laptop. I'd nod, keep my eyes on the road, and listen. The car was his sanctuary, his war room. He thought it was soundproof, a bubble where he could say anything. He was wrong. That Mercedes had leather seats, tinted windows, and a partition he rarely used. Every word he said, every call he took, every dirty deal he planned, I heard it all. I knew about the bribes he funneled through offshore accounts for a city councilor. I knew about the mistress he kept in a condo in Cambridge, the one he bought with laundered money. I knew about the consulting fees he paid to a judge to sway a case. I didn't write it down. I didn't need to. Prison had sharpened my memory to a blade. I stored every detail, every name, every date, like bullets in a clip I didn't yet know I'd fire. At first I didn't care. His world wasn't mine. I just needed the job. The pay was decent, $25 an hour, plus overtime, and I could save up, maybe get a place of my own someday. But Grayson had a way of grinding you down. He'd berate me in front of his buddies, rich guys in Rolexes who'd laugh when he called me the ex-con or the help. Once, he made me wait outside in a snowstorm for 2 hours while he schmoozed at a gala, then chewed me out for not having the car warm enough when he finally stumbled out, half drunk. "You're lucky I don't fire you, Ethan," he slurred, tossing his coat at me like I was his butler. I caught it, folded it, and said nothing, but I was watching, always watching. The first crack in my silence came about a year ago. Grayson was on a call with a guy named Marco, a sleazy developer who was dodging a fraud indictment. They were talking about a witness, some accountant who'd turned whistleblower. "Make her disappear," Grayson said, his voice low like he was ordering takeout. "Not like that, idiot. Just scare her. Get her to recant." I gripped the wheel a little tighter, my knuckles white. Marco laughed, said he'd handle it. A week later, I saw a news article about a woman found beaten in her apartment. She survived, but she dropped her testimony. Grayson's client walked. I started paying closer attention after that. I wasn't a saint. I didn't care about justice or saving the world, but something about the way Grayson operated, the way he treated people like pawns, started to eat at me. Maybe it was the way he reminded me of the cop who'd framed me, all smug and untouchable. Maybe it was the way he assumed I was too dumb to understand what he was doing. Whatever it was, I stopped just driving. I started collecting. A phone number here, a name there, a slip of paper he left in the back seat with a bank account number scrawled on it. I didn't know what I'd do with it all, but I kept it, locked away in my head and in a small safe in my apartment. Then came the day he betrayed me. It was a Tuesday, gray and rainy, the kind of day that makes Boston feel like it's drowning. Grayson had a meeting with a client, some hedge fund guy named Paul Whitaker, who was under investigation for insider trading. I drove them to a private club downtown, waited in the car like always. But when Grayson came out, he was different. Tense, his jaw tight. He got in, slammed the door, and said, "Ethan, you're done." I turned, thinking I'd misheard. "What?" "You're fired," he said, his eyes cold. "And don't think about running your mouth. I know people who can make your life hell." I asked why, my voice steady even though my gut was twisting. He smirked. "You think I'm stupid? I know you've been snooping. You're lucky I don't have you arrested." I started to protest, but he cut me off. "Get out. Now." I pulled over, grabbed my jacket, and stepped into the rain. He drove off, the Mercedes taillights fading into the storm. I stood there, soaked, trying to piece it together. Snooping? I'd been careful, invisible. Then it hit me. Whitaker, the client. Grayson had been paranoid about leaks, and I was an easy scapegoat. A driver with a record? Perfect fall guy. I checked my phone later that night and saw the news. Whitaker's case had taken a hit because of a leaked document. Grayson had pinned it on me. I could have let it go. Found another job, kept my head down. But something snapped. I'd spent years taking hits. Prison, Grayson's insults, the world's indifference. Not this time. He thought he could ruin me and walk away. He didn't know who he was dealing with. I had his secrets, his lies, his whole damn empire in my head, and I knew exactly who'd pay to hear it. That night I made a call. Not to a cop. Cops couldn't be trusted. I called a guy named Tommy Russo, a private investigator I'd driven Grayson to meet a few times. Russo hated Grayson's guts. I'd heard them argue in the car once, something about Grayson stiffing him on a job. Russo picked up on the second ring. "Who's this?" he growled. "Ethan," I said. "Grayson's driver. I've got something you'll want to hear." I met Tommy Russo at a dive bar in Southie, the kind of place where the jukebox played Springsteen and the bartender didn't ask questions. It was 2 days after Grayson fired me, and I'd spent every waking hour replaying the last 3 years, piecing together the puzzle of Victor Grayson's empire. The rain had stopped, but the air was still damp, clinging to my jacket as I slid into a booth across from Russo. He was a stocky guy, mid-40s with a buzz cut and a face like a bulldog, scarred, suspicious, but sharp. He nursed a whiskey and eyed me like I was a stray dog that might bite. "You're the driver," he said, not a question. "Grayson's boy. What's this about?" I leaned forward, keeping my voice low. "I'm not his boy, and I've got dirt on him that'll make your head spin." Russo raised an eyebrow, skeptical but intrigued. "Dirt's cheap. Proof's what matters. You got proof?" I didn't flinch. "I've got names, dates, deals. I've got his calls, his clients, his payoffs. I know where he hides his money, who he's screwing over, and who he's scared of." You want proof? I can get it. But I need to know you're in. He studied me, swirling his drink. I could tell he was weighing it, whether I was a liar, a lunatic, or the real deal. Finally, he leaned back. Grayson's a snake. I've been trying to nail him for years. He burned me on a case back in 18, left me holding the bag when his client flipped. If you're legit, I'm listening. Start talking. I didn't tell him everything. Not yet. I wasn't stupid. Guys like Russo could turn on you if the price was right. But I gave him enough to hook him. I told him about the city councilor Grayson had in his pocket, a guy named O'Malley who'd pushed through a shady zoning deal for a waterfront condo project. I mentioned the account number I'd seen on that scrap of paper in the back seat. First Cayman Bank. 8 digits, tied to a shell company called Blue Horizon. And I dropped a name. Elena Vasquez, the mistress in Cambridge, who Grayson had bragged about keeping quiet with cash and threats. Russo's eyes lit up at that one. Vasquez, he muttered, jotting it down on a napkin. She's a loose end. If she's got half a brain, she's got leverage on him. She does, I said. I drove him to her place twice a month. He'd stay for an hour, leave her cash in an envelope. Once, he was so drunk, he left the envelope in the car. I saw it. 5 grand unmarked bills. He's not just paying for her company. She knows things. Russo grinned, a predator smelling blood. You're sharper than you look, kid. All right, I'm in. But if you're playing me, I'll bury you. I nodded. Fair. But I'm not the one you need to worry about. That was the start. Russo and I became an unlikely team, a burned-out PI and an ex-con driver with a grudge. He had contacts, cops who owed him favors, hackers who could dig into bank records, even a reporter at the Globe who'd kill for a scoop. I had the keys to Grayson's world, or at least the parts he'd been too arrogant to hide. We agreed to move slow, build a case, and hit Grayson where it hurt. His reputation, his money, his freedom. But I wasn't just after revenge. I wanted him to feel what I'd felt. Cornered, betrayed, powerless. The first step was Elena Vasquez. Russo tracked her down in a day. She was 29, a former paralegal who'd worked at Grayson's firm before becoming his personal project. She lived in a sleek condo off Memorial Drive, paid for by Grayson's dirty money. Russo wanted to approach her, but I stopped him. She won't talk to you, I said. She's scared. Let me do it. I showed up at her building on a Thursday night dressed in a cheap suit I'd bought at a thrift store to look less like a driver. I buzzed her apartment, half expecting her to ignore me. But she answered, her voice wary through the intercom. Who is this? Ethan, I said. I used to drive for Victor. I need to talk. It's about him. Silence. Then a buzz and the door clicked open. I took the elevator to the 5th floor, my heart pounding. I wasn't nervous about her. I'd faced worse than a scared mistress in prison. But this was the first real move. The first time I was stepping out of the shadows. If I screwed this up, Grayson would smell trouble, and guys like him didn't let threats breathe for long. Elena opened the door in yoga pants and a hoodie, her dark hair pulled back. She was pretty, but her eyes were tired, like someone who hadn't slept well in years. She crossed her arms, sizing me up. You're the driver, she said. I remember you. Quiet guy. What do you want? I didn't sugarcoat it. I'm taking Victor down. He framed me, fired me, and I'm done playing his game. I know you're in deep with him. I know he's paying you to keep quiet. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to offer you a way out. She laughed, bitter. A way out? You think it's that easy? Victor owns me. He owns this place, my car, my life. If I talk, he'll destroy me. He's already destroying you, I said, stepping closer. I've seen the envelopes, Elena. The cash, the threats. You're not his girlfriend, you're his prisoner. Help me, and I'll make sure you walk away clean. She stared at me, her jaw tight. I could see the wheels turning, the fear wrestling with the anger. Finally, she stepped aside. Come in, but if you're lying, I'll call him myself. Inside, her condo was all glass and chrome, like a magazine spread, but it felt cold, like a cage. She poured herself a glass of wine, offered me nothing, and sat on a white couch. What do you know? She asked. I told her what I'd heard. Grayson's calls about the zoning deal, the judge he'd paid off, the witness he'd had roughed up. I didn't mention Russo yet. I needed her to trust me first. Her face didn't change, but her hands shook slightly as she sipped her wine. When I finished, she set the glass down hard. He's worse than you think, she said. Those envelopes? They're not just for me. He's got a safe in his office, hidden behind a painting. He keeps records there, names, amounts, dates, blackmail material, payoffs, everything. He showed it to me once, said it was his insurance policy. If you want to hurt him, that's where you start. My pulse quickened. A safe, hard proof. Can you get me in? I asked. She shook her head. He changed the code after I moved out of the firm, but I know the combination to his office door, and I know when he's not there. It was a start, a dangerous one, but a start. I left her apartment with a plan forming. Russo could handle the tech side. Cameras, alarms, maybe a guy who could crack a safe. I'd get into the office, get the records, and hand them to Russo's reporter friend. But there was a catch. Grayson wasn't stupid. He'd know if something was off, and if he traced it back to Elena, or me, we'd be dead, or worse. As I walked back to my car, the Boston skyline glittering across the Charles River, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Grayson thought he'd broken me, tossed me aside like trash. But he'd underestimated me. I wasn't just a driver, I was a ghost, a shadow he'd never seen coming, and I was about to haunt him. The plan was simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. Grayson's office was on the 32nd floor of a glass tower in the financial district, a fortress of security cameras, keycard locks, and a night guard who looked like he bench-pressed SUVs. Elena gave me the door code, 749-2, and a window. Grayson was flying to New York for a deposition on Friday, leaving his office empty from 6 p.m. until Monday. That gave us 72 hours to get in, crack the safe, and get out without leaving a trace. Russo called it a suicide mission with extra steps. I called it justice. Russo brought in a guy named Dex, a wiry hacker with a neck tattoo and a rap sheet longer than mine. Dex was a genius with systems, cameras, alarms, digital locks, but he was twitchy, the kind of guy who'd sell you out if the heat got too high. I didn't trust him, but Russo vouched for him, and we didn't have time to shop around. The three of us met in Russo's cramped office in Dorchester, a room that smelled like stale coffee and cigarette smoke. Dex spread out blueprints of the building on a folding table, pointing out the security hubs. Cameras here, here, and here, he said, tapping the paper. I can loop the feeds for 20 minutes tops. After that, the system resets, and we're on tape. Guard does rounds every hour, so you'll need to be quick. What about the safe? I asked. Dex grinned, showing a gold tooth. If it's a standard biometric or combo, I'm golden. If it's some high-end vault with a retinal scan, you're screwed. Bring me a picture of the lock, and I'll know what we're dealing with. Russo handed me a burner phone and a tiny earpiece. You're going in. Dex handles tech from the van. I'll be outside watching for trouble. Elena's staying out of this. She's too hot. One slip and Grayson's on us like a pit bull. I nodded, memorizing the layout. The office door was the easy part. The safe, hidden behind a tacky abstract painting of a sailboat, was the wild card. Elena said it was a steel box, about 2 feet wide, with a digital keypad and a thumbprint scanner. That meant we needed Grayson's print or a miracle. I wasn't betting on miracles. Friday night came fast. Boston was alive with the weekend crowd, bars spilling over with tech bros and college kids. I parked a stolen Honda 3 blocks from the tower, dressed in black jeans, a hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low. Dex was in a van across the street, his laptop glowing as he hacked into the building's security feed. Russo sat in a diner nearby, sipping coffee and scanning the street for cops. The earpiece crackled as Dex's voice came through. "Cameras are looped. Guards in the lobby, eating a sub. You've got 18 minutes. Go." I slipped into the service entrance using a key card Dex had cloned from a maintenance worker. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt like an eternity, the soft jazz music mocking my pounding heart. When the doors opened, I moved fast, sticking to the shadows of the hallway. Grayson's office was at the end, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. I punched in the code 72492, and the lock clicked. I was in. The office smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Grayson's desk was a slab of polished oak, cluttered with files and a half-empty bottle of Macallan. I ignored it, heading straight for the sailboat painting. It swung open on hinges, revealing the safe. A sleek black box with a glowing keypad and a small scanner. I snapped a photo and sent it to Dex. His voice buzzed in my ear. "Yup, biometric and combo. Thumbprint's the problem. You got Grayson's finger handy?" "Funny," I muttered. "What's plan B? Brute force the code, 6 digits, maybe a birthday or something dumb. Try his wife's, 03, 15, and 78. I punched it in. Red light. No go. His kids, 06, 22, 09. Another red light. I tried his birthday, his anniversary, even the date he passed the bar. Nothing. My 20 minutes were ticking down. Sweat beaded on my neck. Then I remembered something. Grayson was vain, obsessed with his legacy. I'd once heard him brag about the day he made partner, April 1st, 2004. I typed 040104. The safe beeped and the lock disengaged. No thumbprint needed. Arrogance strikes again. Inside were folders, thumb drives, and a ledger bound in leather. I stuffed them into a backpack, my hands steady despite the adrenaline. I was about to close the safe when I saw something else. A small, locked box with a keyhole. No time to mess with it. I grabbed it too, zipped the bag, and shut the painting. "I'm out," I whispered to Dex. "Guards moving. Take the stairs." I bolted for the stairwell, my boots echoing on the concrete steps. By the time I hit the street, my lungs burned, but I was clear. I ditched the Honda and met Russo at the diner. He didn't smile, just nodded. "Good work, kid. Let's see what you got." Back at his office, we spread the haul on the table. The folders were gold, contracts, wire transfers, emails linking Grayson to O'Malley, the judge, and a dozen other players. The thumb drives held audio files, Grayson's voice clear as day, cutting deals and threatening enemies. The ledger was a handwritten record of every bribe he'd paid since 2015, meticulous and damning. The locked box was a mystery. Dex couldn't pick it, and we didn't have time to crack it open. "Later," Russo said, "this is enough to bury him." But it wasn't enough for me. Grayson hadn't just fired me. He'd tried to frame me for Whitaker's leak. I wanted him to know it was me who brought him down. That meant getting closer, riskier. I told Russo I wanted to meet the reporter, a woman named Claire Novak at the Globe. She'd been sniffing around Grayson for years, and Russo said she was clean, hungry for a big story. "You sure?" he asked. "Once this goes public, there's no going back." "I'm sure," I said. "He's not slipping out of this." The meeting with Claire was set for Sunday at a coffee shop in Cambridge. I brought the ledger and one thumb drive, keeping the rest with Russo as insurance. Claire was in her 30s, sharp-eyed, with a notebook already open when I sat down. "You're Ethan," she said, "no nonsense. Russo says you've got something big. Show me." I slid the ledger across the table. She flipped through it, her eyes widening. "This is... Jesus. You're saying Grayson kept this himself? He's cocky," I said. "Thought no one would touch him." She plugged the thumb drive into her laptop, her face paling as she listened to Grayson's voice. "This is enough for a front-page story. Maybe a federal investigation. But I need corroboration. Can you get me someone else? A witness?" I thought of Elena. She'd been cagey when I last called, scared Grayson was on to her. But she was our best shot. "I'll try," I said. That night, I called Elena. No answer. I tried again an hour later. Nothing. My gut twisted. I drove to her condo, the city a blur of neon and shadows. Her building was quiet, but her apartment door was ajar. I pushed it open, my heart sinking. The place was trashed, furniture overturned, glass shattered. Elena was gone. Elena's trashed apartment was a punch to the gut. The broken glass, the overturned couch, the eerie silence. It screamed. Grayson. I stood in the wreckage, my breath shallow, scanning for clues. Her laptop was gone, her phone nowhere in sight. A smear of blood on the kitchen counter sent a chill down my spine, but it wasn't enough to mean she was dead. Not yet. I didn't touch anything. I'd learned in prison how to move through a scene without leaving a trace. My earpiece crackled as I called Russo. "Elena's gone. Place is tossed. Grayson's on to us." Russo cursed. "Get out of there, now. Meet me at the safe house." The safe house was a run-down motel in Revere, a cash-only dump where nobody asked for ID. Russo was waiting in room 12, pacing, a cigarette burning in his hand. Dex was there too, his laptop open, hacking into traffic cams near Elena's building. "Nothing yet," Dex said, not looking up. "If Grayson's guys took her, they're pros. No plates, no faces." I slammed my fist on the table. "We can't wait. He knows we're coming. We need to move now." Russo stubbed out his cigarette. "Move how?" "Without Elena, Claire's story is thin. The ledger's good, but it's not airtight without a witness. And if Grayson's spooked, he's probably shredding evidence as we speak." I pulled the locked box from my backpack, the one from Grayson's safe. We hadn't opened it yet, too focused on the ledger and thumb drives. "What about this?" I said. "Elena said his real dirt's in here. Blackmail, leverage. If we crack it, we might not need her." Dex grabbed the box, turning it over. "Old school lock. I can pick it, but it'll take time. 10 minutes, maybe." "Do it," I said. While Dex worked, I told Russo about the blood in Elena's apartment. His face darkened. "If he hurt her, he's desperate. That's good. He's sloppy when he's desperate. But it's bad for us. He'll be looking for you." I knew he was right. Grayson had eyes everywhere. Cops, PIs, even a few lowlifes who do his bidding for a stack of cash. I'd been careful, but careful only gets you so far when you're up against a guy with his kind of reach. Still, I wasn't backing down. Not now, not after everything. Dex popped the lock with a soft click. Inside the box was a single USB drive, unmarked, and a thin notebook with handwritten pages. Russo grabbed the notebook, flipping through it. "Holy shit," he muttered. "It's a kill list. Names, dates, methods. Judges, witnesses, even a cop who got too nosy. Grayson's been playing God." I plugged the USB into Dex's laptop. It was encrypted, but Dex cracked it in under a minute. The files were videos, grainy, but clear enough. Grayson meeting with a hitman in a parking garage. Grayson handing an envelope to a guy I recognized as O'Malley, the counselor. Grayson in a hotel room threatening a woman who looked like the whistleblower from the fraud case. Each clip was time-stamped, irrefutable. This wasn't just a smoking gun, it was a damn arsenal. "We've got him," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. "This goes to Claire. Tonight." Russo hesitated. "What about Elena? If we go public, Grayson might—" "He's already got her," I snapped. "We can't save her by sitting on this, but we can make sure he pays." We sent the files to Claire via an encrypted drop, along with the notebook's contents. She called me an hour later, her voice shaking with excitement. "This is bigger than I thought. I'm running it tomorrow, front page. FBI's already sniffing around Grayson. This'll blow it wide open. You need to lay low, Ethan. He's got friends in high places." I didn't plan on hiding. Grayson had taken everything from me. My job, my dignity, maybe even Elena. I wanted to see his face when his world collapsed. But first, I had to find her. I drove back to Boston, retracing Grayson's patterns. He was a creature of habit, always returning to the same haunts when he was stressed. One place stood out, a warehouse in the Seaport district owned by one of his clients, a front for moving dirty money. I'd driven him there twice, heard him on the phone talking about cleaning up loose ends. If Elena was alive, she'd be there. I parked a block away, the warehouse looming like a concrete tomb. It was 2 a.m., the street deserted except for a black SUV idling near the entrance. 2 guys stood outside, armed, their breath visible in the cold. I didn't have a gun, too risky with my record, but I had a tire iron and a lifetime of knowing how to move quietly. I circled around, slipping through a broken fence and found a side door. The lock was rusted. One hard yank and it gave. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of crates and shadows. I heard voices, low and urgent, coming from a back room. I crept closer, the tire iron heavy in my hand. Through a crack in the door, I saw her, Elena, tied to a chair, her face bruised but alive. Grayson stood over her, his suit jacket off, his tie loose. He was holding a phone, screaming at someone. "Find the driver! He's the one who took it!" I didn't think. I kicked the door open, tire iron raised. Grayson spun, his eyes wide with shock. "You!" he spat, reaching for a gun on the table. I was faster. The tire iron caught his wrist and the gun clattered to the floor. He lunged at me, but I'd spent years in prison learning how to fight dirty. I drove my knee into his stomach, then slammed him against the wall. He crumpled, gasping. Elena stared at me, her eyes wide. "Ethan!" I cut her ropes with a pocket knife, keeping the tire iron aimed at Grayson. "Can you walk?" I asked. She nodded, shaky but determined. "Yeah, let's go." Grayson laughed, a weak, desperate sound. "You're dead, Ethan. You and her. You think you can touch me?" I crouched in front of him, my face inches from his. I already did. Check the news tomorrow. We left him there, groaning on the floor. The 2 goons outside were gone, probably spooked by the noise. I got Elena to my car and drove her to Russo's safe house. She was shaken but talking, filling in the gaps. Grayson had grabbed her after she'd called me, paranoid she'd spill. He hadn't counted on me being 1 step ahead. The next morning, Claire's story hit like a bomb. Boston attorney linked to corruption, blackmail, and murder, the headline screamed. The Globe laid it all bare. The ledger, the videos, the notebook. By noon, the FBI had raided Grayson's office and penthouse. By evening, he was in cuffs, his face plastered across every news channel, his empire in ashes. O'Malley and the judge were named as co-conspirators. They'd be next. Elena went into hiding with Russo's help. She'd testify if it came to trial, but she wanted out of Boston for good. I didn't blame her. As for me, I didn't stick around to gloat. Claire offered me a thank you in the form of a job, driver for the Globe's investigative team. Decent pay, no suits, no secrets. I took it. A week later, I got a call from Russo. They'd found Grayson's SUV abandoned near the harbor, the locked box from his safe inside, empty. Whatever was in it, he'd taken it with him to bargaining table. He'd probably cut a deal, shave a few years off his sentence. Didn't matter. He was done, stripped of his power, his name, his freedom. I'd made sure of that. I drive a different car now, a beat-up Tahoe that smells like coffee and newsprint. The reporters I work for are loud, nosy, but they treat me like a person, not a shadow. Sometimes, late at night, I think about Grayson, rotting in a cell, wondering how a dumb driver outplayed him. I don't smile, I don't gloat. I just keep driving, the city lights blurring past, knowing I took down a king and walked away clean.